Hey guys, as you close your eyes and let the day slowly drift away, imagine with me for a while. You are far back in time, in a world where shadows stretch across stone walls, and the air hums with a mixture of excitement and dread. You find yourself in the heart of the Roman Empire, a place where life is noisy, crowded, and ruled by spectacle. Tonight, you are not an ordinary citizen of modern life. Instead, you are stepping gently into the sandals of someone living, nearly 2,000 years ago, walking toward the looming silhouette of a massive arena. The amphitheater rises like a mountain of stone. Its arches and stairways catch the last glow of sunlight, and you hear the low murmur of the crowd already gathering inside. People of all classes, from senators in fine robes to farmers still smelling of soil, are moving like a tide through the gates. Their chatter fills the warm evening air, blending with the cries of vendors selling roasted nuts, wine, and little trinkets shaped like swords and helmets. To them, this is more than just entertainment. It is a ritual, a show of Rome's greatness, a reminder of power. Now imagine that you are not walking as part of the crowd. Instead, you slip beneath the arena, where the shadows deepen and the atmosphere grows heavier. The stone corridors echo with footsteps, the scrape of chains, and the muffled voices of men about to face death. The smell here is different: sweat, iron, and oil, so thick you could almost taste it. In these hidden passageways, far below the cheering audience, the gladiators prepare. You see them in dim light, sitting quietly or pacing back and forth. Some clutch wooden practice swords, their hands trembling slightly. Others kneel in silent prayer to strange gods, whispering words that only they believe will protect them. The flickering torchlight paints their faces with shadows, making every scar more dramatic, every bruise a story of yesterday's fight. You hear the creak of armor straps being tightened. A young man, barely more than a boy, struggles to fit a heavy helmet over his head. He breathes shallowly, as though the weight of the metal is already crushing him. Beside him sits an older fighter, his eyes calm but distant. He has been here before. He knows the sand of the arena, the roar of the crowd, the sting of wounds. He has survived, but survival comes at a cost, and his body carries the map of that history. Lines, cuts, and broken bones healed in crooked ways. The silence between them is filled with the muffled thundering above. The crowd grows louder, restless, calling for blood, for glory, for distraction from their ordinary lives. Each shout shakes the ground beneath your feet, and the fighters know that soon. Those voices will either chant their names in victory or scream as their bodies collapse onto the blood-stained sand. A door creaks open at the far end of the corridor. A trainer, broad-shouldered and merciless, shouts orders. It is time. You walk with the men as they line up, their bare feet scraping against the rough stone floor. Some whisper final thoughts, others stay silent, eyes forward, lost in their own world of fear and courage. The passage leads upward now, toward light. The air grows hotter, brighter, and filled with the smell of dust. You hear the rattle of chains as massive gates grind open. Suddenly, sunlight floods in, blinding after the darkness below. And then, you are there, on the edge of the arena floor. The roar is deafening, like a storm breaking over the sea. 50,000 voices rise together, a living wall of sound that vibrates in your chest. The sun beats down, reflecting off golden helmets and polished shields. The sand beneath your feet is pale and fine, but already dark patches show where blood has soaked in from earlier fights. You glance upward and see the tiers of seats stacked high, filled with a sea of faces. Some lean forward eagerly. Others wave little flags or clap their hands in rhythm. At the center, in a special box shaded by a canopy, sits the emperor himself, draped in purple, his expression unreadable. Every eye glances toward him at least once, for it is his will, his gesture, his decision that may determine who lives and who dies today. The announcer's voice echoes through the arena, introducing the combatants, praising Rome, stirring the crowd into frenzy. Your heart pounds as the fighters step forward, saluting the emperor with the ancient words, Ave, Caesar moritur te salutant. Hail, Caesar. Those who are about to die salute you. The crowd answers with a cheer that rattles the very stone walls. The first match begins. 2 men circle one another, their weapons glinting in the sun. One carries a net and a trident, his eyes darting for an opening. The other, heavier, holds a short sword and shield, his movements slower but measured. The sand kicks up around their feet, dust mixing with sweat and fear. The clash of iron rings out, sharp and harsh, cutting through the roar of voices. From the stands, children lean forward, their faces wide with awe. Merchants take bets, coins clinking as wagers are placed. Senators smile politely, as though they are merely observing another day's business. To them, this is not barbarity. This is Rome. This is the empire proving its strength through blood and spectacle. As you watch, the fight intensifies. Blades scrape across shields, sparks flying briefly. A cry goes up as one man stumbles, caught in the net. The trident pierces forward, swift and brutal. The crowd leaps to its feet, voices screaming for an ending. The emperor remains still, raising his hand slowly, deciding whether mercy or death will fall. And you, standing there, realize that for gladiators, every step into this arena is a step closer to death. Their shadows stretch long on the sand, but their time is short, brutally short. The roar of the crowd may carry their names for a moment, but when silence comes, it comes like a curtain, swift, heavy, and final. The sun begins to dip slightly, casting longer shadows across the amphitheater. You close your eyes for a moment and listen. The sound of the crowd, the clash of weapons, the cries of the wounded. It all blends together like a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. Yet here, in this moment, you are part of it. You feel the weight of history pressing softly on your chest, and you know that these games, these lives will echo for centuries. Slowly, the scene fades, as though you are walking backward into the shadows again. The sound grows softer, the light dimmer, until all that remains is the quiet thrum of your own breathing. And so begins your journey through the brutal, fleeting lives of Rome's gladiators. You drift deeper into the story, and with it, into the hidden lives of men who never chose this path. Behind the bright glare of the arena, before the roar of the crowds, there lies the quieter tragedy of beginnings. Most gladiators were not volunteers. They were not men who woke one morning and decided to fight for glory. Instead, they were taken, captured in war, condemned for crimes, or sold into slavery by desperate families who needed coin to survive. Imagine the provinces of the vast Roman Empire. Far away from the city of Rome itself, Roman legions marched into towns and villages, conquering new lands. In their wake, they dragged chains filled with prisoners. Farmers, shepherds, and rebels alike were bound and marched hundreds of miles, stripped from their homes. Many of them would be sold into slavery in markets, their names and identities reduced to mere numbers. Some would end up working in fields, some in mines, and some, those who were strong, young and defiant, would be sent to the schools of the gladiators. For these men, the journey began not with applause, but with shackles. Picture a dusty marketplace under a blazing sun. Traders shout prices. Buyers inspect bodies like animals, checking muscles, teeth, scars. A young prisoner, his wrists rubbed raw from iron cuffs, stares silently at the ground as a Roman buyer circles him. The boy does not know his fate yet, but the path is already set. A coin changes hands, and his life belongs to another. Some gladiators were criminals, thieves, murderers, or rebels, condemned by Roman courts to fight as punishment. The state saw no better use for them than to bleed for the entertainment of others. For these men, the sentence was as final as death itself. Few expected to live long once condemned to the arena, but not all were unwilling. Strangely, there were also volunteers, men called auctorati, poor citizens of Rome who had debts they could not pay, or men broken by poverty, sometimes chose the arena as a chance at food, lodging, and perhaps even fame. They signed contracts binding themselves to the gladiator's life, swearing an oath that sounded more like a curse, to endure burning, chains, beating, and death by the sword. Imagine repeating those words, sealing your own future with an oath to suffering, because hunger had left you no other choice. In these schools, the new recruits were stripped of their names. Instead, they were given nicknames or titles that fit their role. A man from Thrace might be trained as a Thraex, fighting with curved sword and small shield. A man from Gaul could become a Murmillo, wearing a heavy, fish-shaped helmet. Their identities blurred into types, like pieces on a living chessboard, moved for the amusement of Rome. Now, picture the moment of arrival at a gladiator school. The ludus. The high walls rise before you, designed not only to keep enemies out, but also to keep fighters in. Gates clang shut behind the newcomers, and the sound echoes like a drumbeat of finality. Inside, the air smells of sweat and dust. Rows of barracks hold men who look up as you pass, some with curiosity, some with pity, some with hard, empty stares. You are led into a courtyard where trainers wait, carrying whips and sticks. They are veterans, men who once fought themselves, their bodies scarred and stiff with age. They look at the new arrivals as one might look at fresh livestock. Some will grow strong, some will die quickly, all will fight. The first days blur together. The men are shaved, bathed, and marked. Their clothing is simple, rough tunics that barely shield them from cold nights. Chains clink as they are moved into sleeping quarters. Narrow spaces with little more than a cot of straw. The sound of distant clashing weapons rings from another yard, where more experienced fighters practice. For the newcomers, fear settles in like a weight pressing on their chest. At night, lying on the straw, you hear whispers. A man tells the story of how he was captured in battle, sold after watching his village burn. Another admits he killed a man in a tavern fight, too drunk to remember the blade sinking in, and now he pays for it with chains. Another, strangely calm, explains that he signed himself into this life because his children were starving. Each voice in the darkness adds another layer of sorrow. Yet, among them, there is also a stubborn spark, a murmur that perhaps, if one fights well, if one wins often enough, freedom could come. The promise of the wooden sword, the rudies, hovers in their dreams, though few ever touch it. Hope, thin as it may be, keeps many alive through those first brutal days. In the silence before dawn, the men wake to the sound of horns. The gates open again, this time not to let them out, but to drive them into the training yards. Their old lives are gone, stripped away. Ahead lies only discipline, pain, and the long shadow of the arena. And so, the story of the gladiator begins not with fame, but with chains, clinking softly in the dim light, marking each step toward a life of blood and spectacle. The days stretch onward, and soon the rhythm of gladiator life settles like an unshakable chain. The gladiator school, or ludus, is no ordinary place of learning. It is not filled with scrolls or books, nor with tutors reciting lessons of philosophy. Instead, it is a world shaped by discipline, sweat, and the clang of weapons. Here, men are molded not into thinkers, but into fighters. Their bodies are broken down and rebuilt, sharpened like blades until nothing remains but the instinct to survive. Imagine the courtyard of a great training ground. The sun beats down mercilessly upon bare backs and sweating brows. Sand shifts underfoot as men are drilled again and again, striking with wooden swords that bruise but do not kill. Every mistake earns punishment. Trainers shout, their voices cutting through the air like whips. Some carry actual whips, and they do not hesitate to use them when a man falters, when his arm grows weak, when his stance falters. The school is both prison and workshop. Its walls are high, guarded day and night. Escape is nearly impossible. The barracks echo with snores, groans, and sometimes muffled sobs. Yet outside, in the training yards, there is no room for weakness. A man who collapses under exhaustion must rise again or face harsher torment. Even meals are measured carefully, not given out of kindness, but calculated to keep the fighters strong. The diet of gladiators, surprisingly, is not filled with meat and feasts. Instead, it is heavy on grains, beans, and barley porridge. Trainers call them hordeari, barley men. Their meals build muscle and give stamina, even if the taste is plain. On rare occasions, they are given meat, or a drink of vinegar mixed with water, believed to strengthen their bodies. Ashes from burnt plants are sometimes added, a strange mineral tonic thought to harden bones. Every bite, every sip, is part of the slow process of shaping men into weapons. The day's routine is harsh and repetitive. Morning drills begin before the sun is high, when the air is still cool and shadows cling to the walls. Wooden swords, twice as heavy as real ones, are placed in trembling hands. Men swing them over and over until their arms burn, until sweat drips freely into the sand. They practice strikes, thrusts, parries, again and again, until the movement becomes instinct. Shields are raised, lowered, raised again, the rhythm pounding into the muscles of the arms. Later come sparring sessions. Wooden weapons crash against wooden shields, filling the courtyard with hollow echoes. Men stumble, strike, fall, rise again. Each lesson is harsh. Hesitate, and you are struck. Leave your side open, and you are punished with bruises that will ache for days. Yet even this is controlled. Real weapons are rare at this stage, for the trainers do not want their investments destroyed too soon. Gladiators are not just fighters. They are property, valuable property. The trainers themselves are men of a different breed. Some are retired gladiators, their bodies scarred, but their eyes sharp. They walk among the trainees like wolves, correcting stances, shouting orders, striking with sticks to enforce discipline. They carry the authority of men who once faced the sand themselves, who know the roar of the crowd and the sting of iron. To disobey them is to invite pain. To learn from them is the only path to survival. As days turn into weeks, the men begin to change. Muscles harden, movements sharpen. Fear does not vanish, but it becomes quieter, hidden beneath layers of habit. At night, when the barracks are still, You can hear men practicing quietly in the dark, repeating moves in the shadows as though their lives already depend on it. And in truth, they do. The school is not only about fighting, it is about roles, for every gladiator must fit a type. Trainers decide who will fight as a retiarius, light and fast, armed with net and trident, who will carry the heavy helmet of a murmillo, who will wield the curved blade of a Thracian. Each type has its own style, its own strengths and weaknesses, carefully matched against others to create balance and drama in the arena. Imagine being assigned your role, knowing that from now on, your life will be defined by a single set of weapons. If you are a retiarius, you will never hold a shield again. Your fate is to dodge, to entangle, to strike like lightning with your trident. If you are a murmillo, you will always feel the suffocating weight of your helmet and shield. Each type is not just a style of combat, it is a destiny, shaping how you will live, how you will fight, how you will die. The school also teaches endurance of pain. Men are cut, bruised, burned with small brands to harden their minds. They are forced to march under heavy loads, to fight in pairs until exhaustion blurs their vision. Trainers bark that fear must be swallowed, that hesitation is death. Slowly, painfully, the truth sinks in. The arena is not a place for men. It is a place for weapons that bleed. Yet even here, there are sparks of camaraderie. At night, men share scraps of food, quiet laughter, even songs from faraway homelands. In the silence of the barracks, bonds form. Some men learn to trust one another, even knowing that one day they may face each other across the sand. Friendship, however fragile, becomes another form of survival. Days stretch into months, and with them comes a strange rhythm. Life in the ludus is harsh, but predictable. The same drills, the same meals, the same bruises and bandages. Outside the walls, the world continues. Markets bustle, senators scheme, children play. But inside, there is only training, sweat, and waiting. And always, always, the looming shadow of the arena. For every man here knows that the school is not the end. It is only preparation. The true test waits in the amphitheater, beneath the eyes of thousands, where a single mistake can mean silence forever. So the school is a crucible, burning away weakness, forging flesh into steel. It is survival, yes, but survival at a cost so heavy that each day feels like a coin tossed to fate. And for the men inside its walls, every dawn is another step toward that inevitable sand, that inevitable roar, that inevitable fight.